Alright, the final segment here this week at Bill Chasing the Movies, I feel I have to pay tribute to the show that inspired me to do this show. And that is, of course, the tragic announcement, at least for me anyway, as a movie critic fan, that after their origins going back 35 years, that a few months ago, ABC and Buena Vista Company, of course a division of Disney, have decided to cancel the long-running At the Movies. Of course, its origins go back to 1975, where, of course, the late great Gene Siskel and the amazing Roger Ebert teamed together to do a show called Sneak Previews for local Chicago television. Later on, they went on to PBS and other local outlets as they formed At the Movies and Coming Soon to a Theater Near You. And they worked under different titles, but At the Movies seemed to be a very catchy one. They held that slot at PBS until 1986, when they moved on to ABC Buena Vista and were syndicated nationally in North America with Siskel and Ebert. Now, of course, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert were best known for their bantering, their arguing, their differing opinions, even though they look the same personality on the surface. They both wear suits and sweater vests, and they're both very, I guess you could say, they look like your prototypical uptight dad, pretty much that you see on like a 70s TV show. But their intelligence and their basis for film was unmatched. These two guys in their 40s, appealing to everybody of all ages of the way that they knew the realm of film. They took film seriously. As a kid, I started watching Siskel and Ebert around the time I was 7 years old, and my parents watching the show every Saturday night. The way that these two just were so passionate and so energetic about cinema and anything in general was just amazing. The influence they had on the movie community was mind-blowing. These two were not uptight as they looked. As a matter of fact, they recommended many crazy comedies. As a matter of fact, Gene Siskel was a big fan of Dumb and Dumber, a comedy that we all tend to love in my age group. And also the fact that they've loved many movies that nobody would ever dream of two older guys or older people recommending. They were relative to what the movie was giving them, and that is what I had to admire about them. They went strong until 1998, when Gene Siskel suffered, I believe it was a brain tumor. He eventually did recover slightly to come back to work in the later part of 1998, but did not last. In February of 1999, Gene Siskel died at only 52 years old, his last show being earlier in that year. In 1999, Roger Ebert continued to do the show with many array of guest critics, and the show continued to still do well, but many people were missing the chemistry that Siskel and Ebert had. Richard Roeper joined the fray in 2000 permanently as it became Ebert and Roeper. Ebert and Roeper did very well in the ratings as well for the next 6 years, going strong, as their chemistry was a bit different and more light. I mean, even though Siskel and Ebert had that lightness, Ebert and Roeper just seemed to have a more old hipster kind of thing going, where they would argue with each other, but not as passionately, but still, when their differing opinions happened, hilarity would ensue. That was just the way they were. In 2006, however, Roger Ebert, after years of going under thyroid cancer treatments, lost part of his jaw, and his esophagus is damaged, and many parts of his throat, rendering him unable to speak and eat. Roger Ebert has continued to write for the Chicago Sun-Times, a position he's held since 1967, and I still read his columns every week. Richard Roeper continued to do the show with guest critics for 2 years, until finally Disney decided that it needed to go in a young, hip, quote-unquote, direction, hiring Ben Mankiewicz, and a respected film expert from Turner Classic Movies, and Ben Lyons, an entertainment reporter for the E! Network, whose father was once a film critic. Ben Lyons has never written a movie review in his life. I can at least say I have, maybe on Facebook, but I still have. The two were just not at all entertaining, nor were their analysis ever smart. And Ben Lyons would often contradict himself every week so bad that there was a blog started up, a famous blog called I Hate Ben Lyons. Ben Lyons was an abomination, leaving him and Ben Mankiewicz only to last 1 year. They were replaced by A.O. Scott and Michael Phillips, both writers from New York and Chicago. They have good expertise and analysis on movies, but their chemistry just was not there. The ratings went up slightly, but not enough. After the ratings went down dramatically under the two Bens, they tried to increase interest again. ABC thought they were going in the right direction. And like I said, it increased general interest for a short time, then ratings just leveled off again. And then this past spring, ABC decided to pull the plug on the show. I can't blame them. I mean, that's just how business is. If the show's not drawing ratings, and you're not going to keep it on the air. While I respect both A.L. Scott and Michael Phillips for trying, it just doesn't seem the same. Ebert and Roeper came the closest to matching Siskel and Ebert, but it just, even then, wasn't quite the same, even though I still enjoyed it greatly. It's an end of an era for film criticism. This is the reason why I wanted to do this show, was because of this TV show that dated back to its origins of 1975 with two of the greatest film critics of all time, and Richard Roeper himself later joining another great film critic that I admire. So I say farewell to At the Movies. And when you went and you're saying, isn't that what you say, Bill? Well, yes it is. That's why I close my show with, I will be at the movies. That's where I got that from Gene Siskel. So, hopefully film criticism will still have a place on the internet, because that's where I am. Maybe it just doesn't have a place on TV anymore. Roger Ebert still believes it does, but maybe that's just wishful thinking on his part. Either way, I wish all of those critics who've been involved with the show the best, except for you, Ben Lyons. I don't care what you do. But anyway, that's it for this week's edition of Bill Chase and the Movies, and I will be back next week with reviews of Salt, starring Angelina Jolie, a highly anticipated film, her first film in quite some time, and of course, Ramona and Beezus, starring Selena Gomez, and plus I'll have a little bit more next week to review as well. So that's it for this week's edition of Bill Chase and the Movies, and I am Bill Chase, and of course, you know I will be at the movies. Goodbye, everybody.